Good evening. I am Tony Dattino. I'm the founder of the USA Memory Championship. And tonight's Live with Tony is going to be in response to a number of questions and emails, requests that I've been getting on how do you absorb chunks of material and be able to retain it and recall it for purposes of what you need. So I decided to use an article that I read for my own benefit, something I wanted to utilize for a broadcast on Live with Tony. And I wanted to use that article as a way of demonstrating how I go about my reading. And so the first thing I wanted to pass out is the title of the article is The Body's Need for Movement. And what this article is all about is why we get so little and how do we find the motivation. So the first thing I've learned to do in doing any reading of, now again, chunks of material, I'd say this qualifies when you add that page together with the front page on this article. That's a chunk of material, and I want to get through that material and pick out my nuggets that I want to use for a broadcast. So whenever I'm reading, and again, this has got several articles that I'm going to read throughout this particular newspaper publication that I subscribe to. 8 ways I'm going to do this one tomorrow or over the weekend. So I'm reading big chunks of information, and I want to distill it to what is it that I want to retain and remember. So the very first thing I always will do for me is I'll read the last paragraph. I want to see where did this article, The Body's Need for Movement, where did it take me? And where did it leave me? And then I will go backwards and read the opening paragraph. So now I read the end first. I read the first paragraph, and I say, okay, where did it take me? And does the first paragraph help me to get there? So where did it take me? If you don't think you're going to get up at 5 a.m. to exercise before you work, don't set that as a goal. So body movement, we're going to go through the elements of body movement, but the first thing I wanted to do is find out, this was going to take me into the importance of exercise, which I already have done a lot of research and a lot of reading, and it's very something personal to me that I'm very focused on. But I want to read this article to say, are there any new tips? Are there any things that I haven't thought to share with my Live with Tony audience that I want to include in this? So we're not going to get up and don't set that goal, but find a way to incorporate movement into your schedule in a way that feels reasonable. So I highlighted the paragraph, and I said, okay, so now I want to look at what gets in the way of our exercising, and how do we find a way to navigate through that. So as I go through the article, and I start with the first paragraph, at the beginning of this particular Body's Need for Movement, people move less than ever before. The decline has been swift. In a couple of generations, activity has fallen. And I say, I got that. I don't need to highlight that. I don't need to retain that. I know that information already. So what I did on the first few paragraphs is I did nothing. There's nothing on those first few paragraphs that I wanted to retain and recall from my broadcast. But as I went through these pages, you'll notice that I started underlining major points that I wanted to, over here, points that I wanted to address in my Live with Tony on the topic of movement. But now the point I'm trying to demonstrate is also how I take pages of information and distill it to a mind map. So when you look at these pages of information and now distilling it to what I wanted to talk about, that's what I got. So I've got major categories. So as I went through the article, I was interested in why are people not moving and exercising? What stops them? And so can I learn anything new or complement anything that I've already talked about? What are the benefits that people need to be thinking about as they think about their movements and their exercises and how it helps their brain health as well as their physical health? What does success look like for us? I mean, why would we have the motivation and be inspired to be self-generating to want to do this? So what would we define, I call it, as a successful outcome from it? And then how do we get started? What are some tips that I could have picked up in here that I could share with my Live with Tony audience that could help us to get started and not be overwhelmed by the process. And as I jotted down, as you see, I jotted down these key points on these different branches. This is on mind mapping. I use mind mapping a lot when I'm reading, and how I read then is the end of the paragraph or the end of the story, the beginning of it, and then I fill in major branches, and then I extend what I want to know on the branches. So I looked at the first thing I wanted to talk about is, why are people not? So I put a not with a question mark. Why are people not exercising today? If we think, at least we keep hearing about how good it is for our physical well-being, how good it is for our mental well-being, because our brain is using up a good portion of the oxygen we're taking in. So we're seeing more and more science telling us it's really healthy for your brain to be wanting to do this. Why are we not doing it then? And so the first issue starts with, okay, with time, with stress for time. We're busy, and we don't have time. And years ago, if you didn't have time, that wasn't looked at in a positive way. But today, if people quickly say, I'm busy and I don't have time, they kind of, Tony's statement, they think of themselves as being so important that they're so busy and they're so active. My life is so chock full of valuable, important things. I don't have time to exercise for my own body, which I think is insane, personally, because your own body and your own brain should be what you're all about. And therefore, to say, I don't have time, well, what are you doing with your time? So people, they don't have time. They have found that eating, right, when we're stressed and we don't have time, what do? We sit down and eat instead, and then we drink. And we'll have time for drinking, we'll have time for eating. And are we eating the right nutritional foods? So the second thing is, not only do we not have time, but we find comfort to some level of food and drinking. And especially you find people that sometimes put on excess weight. They find that food and drinking is a way they can alleviate that problem. We're sitting a lot more. So we become so sedentary. We sit a lot more at work. We sit a lot more at home, and we watch television. And I sometimes say, is the value of a TV program, can you not exercise and get up and walk around in a room while you're watching television? And so the notion becomes, how do I get some movement? How do I get some movement? And then obviously we want results quickly. So if I don't get on an exercise program this week and find myself losing 5 pounds next week, it's like, I didn't get the results I started with, therefore I get discouraged. And so inside of that are some secrets of, so what should you do when you start this? Now, benefits. What we know, so now I went through the why not. And so the next thing I want to know, okay, what are the benefits of it? So if you can read what I got there, I've got benefits. And so I've got some talking points there. And the first thing you can do is, first, by being active and being exercised, first, your self-esteem of the fact that you've done it. And it's amazing what a mental process you go through. It has made a world of difference when I'm able to run. And now I've been swimming for the last 6 months, which I've never done in my life. But I added a new activity. I went to practice what I teach. So I now swim at least 4 times a week, and I do that for about 30 minutes each time I go. And I have laps I go back. We have a 25-meter pool, so I'm able to go back and forth and set goals for myself. At least once a week, I'm going to go for 800 meters, and the rest of the time, I'm going to do at least 300 meters. So I set goals for myself, and I go from 30 minutes up to almost an hour. But I've set goals for myself that are attainable. So inside of that is one of the secrets of what we want to do. But we get more energetic, we get more energy, our self-esteem is built from that, we become more productive, and we get more creativity. I remember when I did work for Homeland Security, I would run on the beach on the Gulf of Mexico and in San Padre Island in Brownsville, Texas. I'd go out and run on the beach in the morning, and boom, 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 my brain was just actively creative and just generating so many different thoughts and ideas. And last but not least, they're finding Science Day of Ohio State University, interesting study on the benefits it has for children with parents that exercise. Wow, who would think that one? The benefits to your kids. Now I went to the next branch. I said, okay, so what should a successful program look like? So we want to look at what success is now. So let's not get crazy about the goals we set. What's it going to look like in 20 years? And what may it look like if I can go that far out? What might it look like, depending on my age, what might it look at 30 years? And what are the important things that I want to do? So when I hear this, I want to put my time and effort is my health insurance policy. So when you think about a health insurance policy, your time and effort becomes your insurance policy. So how much time do I want to put to this, and how much effort do I want to put is my insurance policy for life expectancy, which then takes us to, hey, do I believe that by working out and doing some form of exercise, maybe some mild weightlifting, just being more active, so being active, walking around the house instead of just sitting watching TV. I do dumbbells at night, just 3-pounders. I do the heavy ones during the earlier part of the day. I might just do a few sets. I don't go crazy. I might get up and do some stretching while I'm watching television, especially sports events, which can get us stressed at times. So there are different things that you can do that make a difference in how you go about doing this. And then what you want to start with is something small. You don't want to, so my last branch is, so how do you get started? What do you do to get started? And I found this to be very interesting, and it supports a lot of the teachings that I do in corporate consulting, which is you want to set people with goals that are a little bit of a stretch, but that are not so far out that they aren't going to make them and therefore get discouraged. So you want to start out with goals that are small. You want to be able to move, start moving, just do something that's moving. And it doesn't have to be running, it doesn't have to be swimming. Just walking up a flight of steps instead of taking the elevator, or parking in the furthest parking spot in a parking lot and learning how to walk. Getting up and doing some physical activities in the house, like doing some cleaning or sweeping or getting the vacuum out. Just anything that starts to get active, because we've become so sedentary and so stuck on our computers that we've lost a lot of our activity. Something you got to like. There's no sense of doing things that you're not going to like, and therefore you feel it's one more task and one more stress that you got to put on yourself. So as I started swimming, I never would have thought that 6 months later I've expanded my swimming process. But as I started, I found that I would look up at the sky. I did backstrokes. So I would look up at the sky, look at the clouds, look at birds sometimes flying up there, and I was fascinated. Here in Florida, I live in Windermere, Florida, and the clouds are just amazing in different shapes. And before I knew it, bam, I had 300 meters done. When I got to my 800 meters, done. I mean, I didn't focus on the task at hand. I focused on the environment that was about me. And I just found that the clouds and the movement, I could lay up there and look up there and just find that it would go by so quickly. So it was something I started to enjoy. And therefore, 6 months later, I look forward to it every day and hoping that the weather stays warm here so I can at least get through November and keep my swimming up to date. And then last but not least, you want to give yourself periods of rest. You don't want to be obsessive about this and do this every day, for whatever amount of time that you've got to push in your schedule. But that requires you then to look at your schedule once a week. So I look at my schedule once a week, and I usually do it on Sundays. And I look at the week and say, okay, do I have any activities on Monday that are going to stop me? So how do I adjust for that? Do I do it? Then can I go and do it on Tuesday? If I can't do it on Monday and I go to Tuesday, well, if I can't do it on Tuesday, then I'm going to make sure I do it on Monday. I look at my schedule for the week and what calls, and then I think about, okay, if I might have to get up a half hour earlier, it's not going to kill me. If I have to move my weightlifting from the morning to the evening because I have some early morning appointments, I'll make that happen. But what I won't do is plop down at the end of the day if I haven't met my task and call it a day without at least saying I'm going to watch some TV, but after I've prioritized my health insurance policy of doing some activity, be it weightlifting, and I don't mean lifting weights at 300 pounds and doing presses and things. I mean this lifting some basic 5-pound, 10-pound items and do some repetitions. If you're going to exercise and do a little bit of walking, then go out after dinner, and I did a broadcast on that and do some walking. But all of these add up. And so now I say to you, I've got this article distilled. I've distilled all those points. I've got the points that I wanted to talk about that I put on a mind map. And then if I'm doing coaching with people, I'll start off with, What is it you want to accomplish? What is it you're trying to achieve? And how much time and effort do you want to prioritize to put into it? And if this is really a priority and it's really important, then don't tell me you're too busy, because what we're going to have to do is look at your calendar and find the spots where this important activity rises to the top 3. Those are some tips. I can go on for an hour plus on this topic. If any of you have looked at our Maximum Memory Mastery online course, Michael Dattino has put some amazing techniques and tips in there, and he does coaching with people that are looking to go for graduate school, an engineer looking to do something in the engineering world, military people. I mean, he has just been amazing in the work he's done with providing coaching as part of what you get when you sign up for his Maximum Memory Mastery. He'll provide a couple of hours of coaching for people as part of the sign up for that. So if that's one of your goals, we have some answers for you. Hang in there with us, and I appreciate the emails that I've been getting. So until tomorrow, Thursday, in the afternoon hours, you have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.